Hello and welcome to Radio Epic. We are a Clan Epic podcast, and my name is acbtheman. I am here with bnelly and Doc Shenanigans. How are you doing, bnelly?
I'm doing all right.
What about you, Doc?
Oh, doing mighty fine today.
Well, good. Well, we just wanted to kind of start a podcast and talk about Destiny. I know a lot of people do that, but we want to put our take on it. We're initially starting this podcast for Clan Epic. So if you're not in Clan Epic, hey, you can come join us, or hey, you can listen to us. But this is mostly for Clan Epic right now, and hopefully this will get big. So Age of Triumph came out. What are y'all guys' first impressions? What do you think?
I'm digging it. There's plenty of stuff to do. The raid has been a lot of fun. It's really nice getting to go back when it's not just like a one sword thing on Crota. Even though I guess you can still do that. Not entirely sure how though.
Weapons of light and some magic.
I know as a person who just recently started playing in the last year or so, uh, going back and doing Crota at hard light has actually been really fun and kind of makes me wonder what year one was like for people. So it's been enjoyable for me.
Nice. Well, I came in the beginning of year one, and it's for me personally, Crota was when I started actually getting into this game, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, and so it's very nice to go back and do those. The one thing for me about Age of Triumph is I just got Mass Effect Andromeda last week, and I want to play it,
uh,
but there's so much stuff to do in Age of Triumph that I'm having a hard time playing anything else because I want to fill that record book out, and I have to do certain pages on it to get the records.
Yeah.
yeah. Looking forward to getting that shirt.
So speaking of Crota, they added challenges to Crota. They added a challenge to the Death Singer and to Crota, and I didn't have a problem with the group I went through with the Death Singer, but when we hit Crota, I had to leave and start another night, and it took about an hour and a half's worth of time for Crota. Or your guys' kind of experience with the Crota? Did you think it was a good challenge? Did you think the Ear Ute challenge was good? I personally loved Ear Ute, but Crota was a pain.
uh, like I said, as somebody who has never only done Crota a few times, the Uriute challenge was awesome and extremely frustrating for me to do. Because it was like everybody was always dying, or somebody would like we'd miss an ad somewhere, or just like stupid little things. But I just did it for the first time last night, and man, was I pumped when I finished it after like being there for an hour. And Crota was the same way. Like finally being able to do the Crota challenge was quite satisfactory when I finished. I was very pumped when I did it.
Well, for me, the Ear Ute challenge, we got lucky and beat it on about our sixth try, so we weren't there very long. But doing Crota in year one, when you could blink strike and re-pick up the sword and just take your time with it and not have to worry about having different sword bearers, it was less stressful. And then now they're definitely adding the energy that you need to have. You need to have the focus to do Crota. And so Crota, while it was fun, I didn't have fun with it because we blew through Ear Ute. We got lucky on Ear Ute, and we literally killed Ear Ute 6 frames before her liturgy hit zero. I watched the recording back, and it may be slightly different from what the game puts out, but it was 6 recording frames before it hit zero. So, I mean, that was fun, and then we hit Croton. Oh,
That's
man.
pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's the challenges I think.
Yeah, we got ours yesterday, like down to the wire. I didn't check frames, but yeah, it was really close. We were definitely sweating bullets, and like I said, that was after an hour of running Uriute. We were just like, we got it, we're done. No more Crota tonight. We'll come back and do it at another time. So
Well, other than the raid, then, I guess, um, what about Age of Triumph as a whole, besides the record book, is kind of bringing you back? And For me personally, I'll give a quick answer. It's that a lot of gear is there to get. A lot of old gear we can bring up now, and it's just essentially the first time in Destiny that I feel like I can look however I want, and I know that I'm going to probably look like less Guardians than before.
That is a really nice thing. I'm just stoked for those old Iron Banner weapons coming back in the bounties. We love some of those old guns.
I think for me personally, again, being a like late year two player, um, I mean, this is like redoing all. Like, I think before like the Redux Crota came, I think I'd maybe done Crota like 5 times at most, and so like I didn't get anything from them except for like Ascendant Energy and nothing really useful for me. So like going back and being able to get like the exotics, and I mean I've already got 2 Fangs of Irut, both exotics, and I've got a legendary one, and like I've gotten all this stuff, and for me it's just like really cool to see, I guess, kind of catch up like way behind what everybody else had the opportunity to experience for the first time. So I didn't get the same awe, but like I felt a sense of accomplishment by picking up that stuff, and I definitely like enjoying kind of picking and choosing what I look like instead of just, oh, everybody's got the raid gear from Wrath of the Machine, cool. Now I've got something a little different from everybody else. So that's a huge selling point for me.
It is so much better not dealing with the terrible loot drops. They were there when it first came out too. That makes it so much more enjoyable. I like being forever a level under.
I'm really hoping when VOG comes back next week that the foil or the updated foil drops at a higher rate. I've never even seen a foil. I don't believe it exists. I think people made it up.
Not like the
Mm-hmm.
1 in 10,000 it is now.
But I guess I do have to say, even though I did not get the Fang or the Oversoul's Edict, I can hold those old emblems over your head.
As somebody who doesn't really collect things, I mean, I kind of just do it for the fun. But as somebody who doesn't like super collect things, I just every time I find something new, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm gonna put it on, and then like that's what I have on for a while. So it's kind of cool, but I guess collecting has never been my passion when it comes to Destiny. So
I like to collect things, but then I delete them. My vault deletion strategy is if I don't use it within that week, it's gone.
hmm.
So even though I like to have access to it, my vault's pretty much empty.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I gotcha.
Man, you guys are so much better than me. I don't have that kind of willpower. If I don't have it, I keep it.
yeah, well, for me personally, I started doing that in year one, even though I got into it and said, oh, I'll keep all this stuff. Right around the time that they said these guns aren't coming up to the Taken King, for me personally, like, why am I going to keep this stuff? Yeah, I have a nostalgic attachment to this, but I deleted my Fatebringer so I could get the Ace of Spades from the gunsmith, and people were mad at me for that. It's just like, I'm not going to use it in anything. And then now I have a chance to get a new one. So, anyways, that's a side track on this. But
Yeah, I did go ahead and delete everything that didn't come up. That was that was painful. That would be nice to finally get them back though.
for me personally, I'm looking forward to seeing if there's many changes besides elements to the Kingsfall weapons. I like Kingsfall, and I'm one of the weird people who like doing that raid. But I know Crota Vog's coming out. Looking forward to King's Fall. Wrath of the Machine, I may skip that. I may do it to do the record book thing, but I may just skip it. I'm not real sure right now.
Yeah, I've done that one to death since I started and since I've been able to do it. So I'm looking forward to the new stuff coming back out.
I get some new stuff. Well, speaking of new stuff, Gary.
Yeah, Gil. That's a G.
So officially, we've known it for a while. There was that toy leak that told us the Cabal were going to attack the tower, but officially, we have a trailer for Destiny 2. We essentially have the, if you're thinking about talking to the Guardians and saying, "Oh, hey, the tower was destroyed," and then we have Kay talking directly to the players, saying, "Hey, there's going to be a ton of stuff. You don't have all your old stuff, but there's going to be a ton of stuff coming." So Destiny 2 has officially been announced, and I cannot be more excited. Except Age of Triumph is here, so it's like double excitement.
Yeah, it's full steam ahead on the hype train for me. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, me as well.
So, what are your biggest kind of hopes? We've pretty much been confirmed that PC is coming out, so sadly, some of our Clan Epic members may make that their focus, but hey, you know, I'll still be here on Xbox. But anyways, so PC's been confirmed. We don't really know much. We know kind of the story. Gaul has come and said, "Screw you and screw your tower," and has taken all of our stuff by destroying it. There was even a little snippet in the trailer where he said he stole our powers, so we may even get a reset on subclasses. That's about all we know. Is we've been kicked out of the tower. We have to figure something out. And so, but what are you looking most forward to, hoping that they can fix with this, with the new game?
Oh, a story. There's gotta be like some sort of like deep narrative story in the game. That'd make it so much better for me.
I think from what I've heard, I never played Destiny Year One, so I can't say. But I know I was talking to a buddy of mine who was like, "Oh yeah, Destiny like when it first came out was like, it's like, oh yeah, I played the crap out of it for like an hour," and he's like, and then after that it was just like, what do I do next? Like what's the end game basically? What's the point? And I think for me, who's a sucker for like story and lore and that kind of stuff, like for me, I want there to be like a thought out, well planned, and extensive like storyline. I want there to be substance in my story. I could care less about rating and stuff, but like my first playthrough, I guess think of it like maybe playing through like Halo for the first time or something. Everybody was like enthralled in the story, and then afterwards you like played it for a few more times and then played multiplayer. But like for me, I want to be like sucked into it, and I want to play it for 6 hours and not know 6 hours has gone by.
It almost felt like a tutorial when you were playing the story the first time through it. There just
Yeah,
really wasn't much other than the basic gameplay mechanics involved.
They also would say like, "Hey, go do this," and you would be like, "Okay." Oh, here's a new enemy. Okay. Oh, here's something else. They gave us all the starts to lots of things in year one, and I didn't really mind the story. Yeah, it was barren, but the story was like, "Hey, you stop the Vex, yay!" But there's all this extra stuff that came out that like we didn't get answers to, like the Stranger, a lot of the other stuff that we're just now getting in lore, with like Thorn technically being the Rose gun and like all this other stuff. I want Grimoire, personally for me, I want Grimoire or some sort of reputation of Grimoire in the game. Like, hey, you pick up a ghost, and you have like the Grimoire card read off immediately. And yeah, it might get annoying, and maybe you can turn that off. But hey, you get something. And with the story, it needs to be more. There needs to be more of a reason than just, hey, we need you to go to this new planet. It needs to make sense while we're going there, and not just like, hey, there's something on Venus. This lady wants to talk to you. Oh, hey, you happen to find the Vex while you're on Venus because this weird exo wants to talk to you. And so for me, I need more believable missions and more story in the game.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, that was a big down point for me, I guess, too. Was like they were like, "Oh, you got a Grimoire card." I'm like, for the longest time, I was like, "Well, cool. Where do I go to get that? Like, where do I go to read that?" And then I eventually found it, and I was like, "Well, but now like none of this makes sense in context to me in some sense,"
Yeah,
because I was like,
because
"Oh,
you
I've
moved
already played through
on.
the game." Yeah, I was like, "I've already played through the game, so like I have no way to like kind of connect things, I guess." And I know like Something that did that real well was like The Witcher 3 did that really well. I've the playthrough I've done. Like if you meet somebody new or go to a new place or whatever, they're like, "Oh, hey, you can, read about this." Well, if you like that stuff, you can go ahead and sit down and read it. Or if you don't, then you can just ignore it. And I think that would be kind of cool, like you said, with the grimoire, is like maybe it pops up and it's like, "Oh, hey, you got a little bio about this character." And then if you want to, you can go see that in, like the menu or something. Or if you don't, then you can just ignore it and continue on.
Well, even going back to Mass Effect that I was talking about, there's the Codex in Mass Effect, which I never read, but instead of having to go to a website and look it up or go to Bungie.net, and yes, you should always go to Bungie.net, but instead of having to go there, I could maybe go into the menu and, like you said, go over and say, oh, here's the Grimoire page, and just read it there. At the very least, to be able to automatically read it and then you're like, oh, this thing I did in game is more connected to me instead of like, oh, I remember doing that last week or a month ago or, you know, blazing through all the stuff. So,
Yeah, I was going to bring up Skyrim for the same reason. Just the way you can, pick up a book and read it if you want to, or you can just ignore it, sell it to somebody, I guess, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of games out there that have done similar things for like their backstory on, their main story. But I think Destiny 1 just had the right idea, maybe with the Grimoire cards, but maybe just executed it poorly. So I think if they can, like come up with a good way to bring it into the main game, make it a little more accessible, a little more relative to what you're doing, then it'd be like a third party kind of thing. I think that would maybe boost people being invested in like the story and be like, oh, who's this? What's this person? Like maybe more theories and stuff come out. But I think that would probably be a good like must have for me.
well, one thing Guardians should know is that Bungie, according to Bungie, they actually scrapped most of the game about a year. I think it was a year or maybe it was a year and a half before Destiny came out, and so this may have been their best case solution for Destiny 1. They may have just said, hey, we need to put something out there. We have all this lore and we want to try to incorporate it. So this may have been best case scenario. And they've definitely heard feedback. They're definitely working on feedback with what they've been doing, especially showing us with this update and then the little, we had a hot fix today or whatever. Just saying, hey, we're listening to what you're saying. We're trying to put some of that stuff in the game. So there should be better story. There should be better ways to access outside lore and all that stuff. It just may have not been feasible if they truly did have to scrap everything a year before.
Yeah, I think that big debacle really didn't help at all. And I really think that Destiny 2 is going to be more like what they expected Destiny 1 to be, with a lot more free roam, a lot more story. It's a lot more narrative driven, and just not so bland. And I don't know.
Well, being Bungie, the second game, I'm really, really expecting greatness. We had Halo 1, which was fun and amazing, and then we got Halo 2, which was fantastic. I'm hoping Destiny 2 can be that way, where it's like, hey, here's all new stuff, here's all this thing. So speaking of new stuff really quickly, do we think we're going to have the same subclasses? Do we think we're going to have brand new subclasses? What do we take on like our abilities and how we're going to use them?
Man, that's tough. I mean, me personally, I would like to see something new. Maybe I don't know if I would say like entirely new classes of characters, but I think maybe I don't know. So maybe something, maybe a different subclass would do it. Although I don't know, I don't know how much creativeness could be done with what has already been done. Like what could be added. I mean,
It
I'd
could be an
almost
overhaul.
Yeah, could be an overhaul. I don't know. I was gonna say I kind of think the Titan, Warlock, Hunter classes are gonna be like essential to the game, and like I don't think there's anything they can do to like not have those. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we've got all, these 9 subclasses. I think it would be pointless maybe to have them be the same going into Destiny 2. If the storyline's going to be progressing to some extent, maybe there's a way that they can change them and augment them so they're not the same subclass, but maybe the same subclass.
Well, in the description of the video where they said like they're taking away our powers, what if they stole our powers and we know about the subclasses, but we have to find a way to gain like their power back, but it's not quite the same, and it could be a lore reason for them to tweak or to overhaul or to give it a little bit of change. So they're similar, but according to lore, they could be different enough to be like, oh hey, Golden Gun's not the same, Bubble's not the same, that kind of deal.
Yeah, I could see that. Good.
Yeah, I would think they would need to be different somehow for sure. I don't think I could stand them being the exact same, because then what's the point of trying to get new stuff? I mean, hunters are always going to make sure they have tether and golden gun for raids, and everybody. For me, it wouldn't be. It'd be carryover from the old game, but it would be like, there's room for improvement. I think you could do something there, and like as you suggested, maybe they get taken away, and when we get them back, or if we even get them back, maybe whoever is like raiding us, or whatever happens in the story, maybe they change them somehow. Maybe they like twist them to the darkness or whatever, so they're a little, I don't know, maybe more of a skill tree, maybe kind of thing. There's like, you'd be like, oh, you could pick this, but if you pick this, then you're only allowed these skills, or something. Who knows?
So give you more options. Like you could be locked. For example, you might be locked out of like a black hole build for your tether hunter, but your triple tether, your what
Yeah, yeah, that would
would
be
have more options.
that would be actually probably a pretty good like example, but also an idea. Um, I don't know. I definitely want to see them change somehow. I don't want them to
Oh,
be the same.
they will. Hopefully, they'll change them enough to keep us interested. Maybe a new class.
A new class would be too.
I don't know how people would. There was that idea floating around of somehow we've got some of the House of Judgment or some other people, so we would have fallen guardians because they originally had the Traveler. Maybe some of them are like, well, maybe we shouldn't be killing them. Maybe we should be helping them defend the Traveler. I don't know. That's definitely a stretch. But make another class would be nice. It'd be more to balance. It'd be longer to for them to do that, but it'd be very interesting.
Yeah, I'd almost like to see a little bit more diversity between the classes. Like personally, when I'm playing right now, I don't really feel all that different when I'm playing as a hunter or as a titan or as a warlock. They all kind of, outside of like the super abilities, there's really not a lot between them that separates them for me.
Your jump style determines your class essentially.
More or less, yeah.
Well, give them more defined roles, I guess. So like Titans are more of your tank characters, and I guess go a little bit more MMO, where Titans are your tanks, Warlocks are your mages, and Hunters are your rogue slash healer types, or something like that. Um, that'd be that'd honestly be really cool.
Yeah, that's something that I'd really like to see. It's, I mean, you can be, I always like just being the hunter. I would expect to be, faster, more agile than a titan, but then you've got titans that are, faster and more agile than hunters running around.
Titan
So
Skate, Twilight Garrison,
yeah,
yeah.
it's you know, the class doesn't feel that special to me when I'm playing.
Well, The real problem I see that is their PvP, the way it's set up is they don't want to have too much outlier because they don't want to have a hunter who can run really, really, really fast and get to like a sniping position. You're just a Titan who, even though you're a tank, you might could get sniped 3 times before you're able to get there. It's because of the way that they want their PvP to be more balanced. That's why, because PvP is bleeding over into PvE, excuse me, all the time. So that's why it's a little bit harder for them to just go straight up tank, mage, rogue. But I do agree they do need to have a little bit more separation than the jump and how squishy you feel. Even though hunters are the squishiest, that's just because their agility's high, and it doesn't really feel that different. I
Yeah.
mean,
To another topic for another time, but going back to the PvP aspect carrying over into PvE, I know there's a game out there and I can't think of what it is, but I'm pretty sure there's been a game where um, like the classes would be so like in PvE, your classes each have their specific roles. Tank for the Titan, like as you said, kind of those specific roles. But then like when you go into PvP, like basically everything is neutralized to a certain extent. So like they're more in line with each other. Um, and so like you have, like your guns, your everything is different for PvE. But then like when you go into PvP, like I guess it's kind of like the level disadvantage and stuff for PvP currently. But like it would take everything, load out, your subclass, everything, and just kind of normalize it to a certain point. And so then then you're looking at maybe you're looking more at armor perks and stuff like that to gain advantages rather than like your subclasses being the advantage. Um, and so like everything's kind of just normalized, but then like everything in PvE is completely separate. So like essentially you would have a PvP like armor and weapons, and then you'd have like PvE armor and weapons. So that way like you're distinguishing between the two in a sense. Um, I know. Like I play League of Legends a lot, and they have different game modes where you can have the same item in two different game modes, but like the stats are different for one game mode than the other because of just the way the game mode's set up. And so like I think having something like that for PvP and PvE, because like in PvE you want something different. You don't want necessarily the same things for PvP. At least in my experience. I'm not a professional in any sense, but that's been my experience. Like I've wanted, like hand cannons are really good in PvP at certain times, but then like for me, I really like to rock a scout rifle because I like to keep my distance from, some enemies that I don't want near me or anything like that. So like I think that would be interesting to see to distinguish between like PvP setups and PvE setups for your characters and for the game in general.
we sort of have that with like in PvE, you need to have like a sniper, you need to have like sleeper simulant for Crota, really, or for the Oversoul and Crota, but that's about it. It's like, oh, you change 2 guns and you pretty much rock the exact same thing. Unless you're like super sweaty. Like for me personally, I have my setup on my characters. I just pull it back and forth between the 2 game modes. It really doesn't affect it very much. That's an interesting idea. I think they could. Maybe we should tweet this at them and have them listen to it and say, "Oh, hey, we should do that."
Yeah, because I know, like I said, going back to League, there's like a 5-on-5, more object or like objective based game mode, which is what most people play. And there's like another just like, oh, we're just gonna kill each other as much as we can, more of like a free for all kind of thing, but it's still team based. And like I said, they have different items because like the free for all kind of stuff is quicker gameplay usually, and so they've tailored the items and a couple other things to facilitate that. Whereas like the objective 5-on-5, they've been like, okay, your matches are going to last this amount of time, your items scale in a certain way, your characters scale in a certain way, and they've taken them separately, same game, same champions, same items, that kind of thing, but they've tailored them to the specific game mode. And I know a lot of people were, I think it was Blade Dancer for the Hunter was that way for a while, where it was like regenerating too much health or something. I'm not sure what the whole thing was, but
There was
it,
no thing, but that's another discussion.
well, yeah, I don't know. It's what I've heard. I thought that was a discussion. Maybe to be staying corrected, but having if it's bad in PvP, and they want to patch that, maybe it's like still usable for PvE stuff. And so like having that distinction between the two separate, ways to play is, I think, something that we would definitely want in
Rip
Destiny 2.
truth. Rip truth.
That poor guy got neutered.
Man, and they didn't even try to. They didn't even come back and say, "Oh, well, we'll try to change it in PVE." They were like, "Nope, we'll just make you happy by making it reload faster."
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I really wish they could make independent changes for guns for PvP and PvE.
They can. They have. They change up shotgun damage, and I know this is just damage numbers, but they change up shotgun damage for PvE, where it's like double or triple what it is for PvP. And so they're like, oh, we're going to make it do more damage in PvE. We didn't change anything in PvP. So they technically have the ability to make these changes that only affect one side. And depending, like the code that they're using now may not let them make sweeping changes, but they've been doing it in Destiny 1. So maybe in Destiny 2 they can say, well, we'll have more changes that only affect PvP. The problem with something like Truth is the text box would get really, really big. It'd be like one in the magazine, and then like after that it would say /3 PvE, which wouldn't be that bad. But if every item had that, they would have to find a way to clean it up for us to visually see. Maybe you know how you pull up the weapon and it says on the left it just has all the stats. Maybe on the left is its PvP stats, on the right is its PvE stats, and so you can kind of just see them and compare them at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like the only difference there with the damages is I'm sure they can probably modify how it affects player characters or how it affects non-player characters. But when you're changing perks on the gun, that I imagine that becomes a little more difficult to do.
It does, especially with the way the code, they say they had to do the code to make it fit on the old systems. Like we noticed with this latest change, when they, for whatever reason, decided Blade Dancer was a little bit too strong in its super, it affected everything else because they were using some of the same code for multiple things. And so that may be, excuse me, that may be have been a little bit more confusing or a little bit more difficult to do, but now they should be able to have things separately. So who knows? Maybe in Destiny 2, if we have a truth-like rocket launcher, it says one in the round for PvE, and then on the right-hand side says, or one in the mag, and then on the right-hand side says three in the mag for PvE. Uh, Maybe they can do more drastic changes like that. And they probably will. I mean, this is, like I said, their second game. They're definitely making better changes. Already we have a ton of story from just a trailer. And so I'm really excited for it. Is there anything else about Destiny 2 speculation, wants, or needs that y'all think we need to touch on?
I'm kind of curious to see just how much interaction there is with the other enemy races that we've seen in Destiny 1. Just obviously Destiny 2 is going to focus on the Cabal since they've already introduced the main villain and everything, or at least what do we expect to be the main villain. And the expansions, I'm sure, probably go into the Osiris one. I imagine goes into the Vex some, and then the Rasputin one. I don't know, maybe the Fallen, maybe the Hive.
Rasputin may not even be. It could be Fallen, but the Rasputin one just makes me think that they're going to touch that a little bit more. And I know they did a lot of Rasputin stuff with Destiny One. But the thing that I'm seeing there is those may not be enemy oriented. They may just be story oriented. And I know you have to have an enemy because you're going to have a Cabal raid to kill Gaul when the game first comes out. Excuse me. And they'll find a raid to do. They'll find something to do, an enemy associated with them. But to me, it seems like this is going to be more story related and less about like, hey, look, Siva's here. You're going to have to kill something big with Siva. And yes, you always need that big end boss. And like Rise of Iron had a lot of story brought into it, which is cool. But I think this is like, hey, you know Rasputin, you know Osiris, let's tell you more. And so that's where I'm excited to go with those.
Yeah, I think for me, like I said, it just goes back to that whole sucker for to story, and like so. I mean, I'm excited because like I felt like the Cabal really didn't have in Destiny One didn't have as big of a role in the story as I would have thought. But like in Destiny 2, I'm hoping like they're kind of the main. I believe like the Vex was kind of that way at the beginning for Destiny 1. You know, like they're the start, and then either we maybe circle back to or like current alien races to basically beat up again, or we get new ones that come in. Because I mean, we know that like I said, the darkness is there, but we don't know much about the darkness. So I mean, the Fallen, the Hive could be like one part of it, but like, is that the only parts, or are there a lot more parts to it? And I believe I've heard maybe that Destiny 2 is going like to the Jovian planets potentially, like the outer ring or the outer solar system. So like, there's a lot of room for, you know, other races and, you know, things like that. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with and who we're going to be fighting against, or maybe working with, to be honest. You know, you said maybe the Fallen come and help us or something. That'd be
Or
interesting.
at least some of them.
Do like Halo did, and you know, like a sect of elites, you know, or like, oh hey, we're going to help the humans to defeat the Covenant, you know. So like the Fallen are like, oh, we're going to help the humans to defeat the Cabal or whoever it is. I don't know. That'd be kind of funny, but it'd be overdone since Halo did it. But
The Cabal are like the brutes.
they are. I mean,
Very much so, yeah.
so I mean, it's definitely a possibility, and it's the same company. So I mean, it's not like it would be a new thing, but it'd be interesting to see how they bring in new races or new threats, and then maybe reuse previous, you know, races and how they interact with us. I mean, it'll be cool to see what happens. So, but
Well,
I'm
I'm looking
excited. I'm
forward.
like want to see what happens to the city and the tower. That's like my biggest thing. Is like I spent so much time staring out at the city underneath the Traveler from the tower, and I'm just like, I want to go down there, and I might be able to do that now. Except it's all up in flames, so
Just
you know,
a little
we'll
bit
have to
too
see how
late,
that
but
goes.
you still get to check it out.
Yeah,
Better late than never.
I mean, it's on fire, but
that was one of the things I kind of wished happened in Destiny, because you know, like the whole thing is about how, you know, we're coming back and the Guardians are bringing about peace and everything. It's like, okay, so why are the only humans I ever have interaction with are the ones that are in the tower? Like, why can't I go into the streets? And maybe that was some of the scrapped story they came up with. But it's like, you know, I'm this super awesome Guardian who's like killed everything in my path, but it's like, why can't I go into the streets and like, I guess in a sense, see why I'm fighting? And you know, that was kind of the one thing I was like, oh, that would have been cool, you know. But I mean, it is what it is.
it definitely looks like there's going to be some interaction between civilians and guardians, and so we could get some of that, um, a little bit extra story. I'm excited, honestly, to experience a Bungie story with a friend. Like, I jumped into the beginning of Destiny, and I had friends playing it, but I essentially was a solo player up until probably middle of Taken King when I joined Epic. But we all have sort of our groups that we kind of fit into, our people we play the game with. Even if you consider yourself a solo player, you probably have one or two people you know that you can play the story missions with. So I'm excited to jump into a new story and experience it with other people and get to speculate and build that hype a little bit more. Like once the game starts and we start getting new exotics and new story missions and new things to do, new ways to play the game, we can talk about it with our friends immediately instead of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just playing this game because it's a Bungie game. And now that we're speculating on Destiny 2 here, once we play it, I think all the new things they're bringing are just going to make it such a enriching experience, and that's what I'm honestly excited to do. Just play this game with some of the Epic guys.
Yeah, I think one thing that I know, like having played other, big games that have come out, like Titanfall and Battlefield, and some of these other stuff, is like these are cool. Like for the story is really fun, but like it's the multiplayer that catches a lot of people. But I think like another thing that like makes Borderlands my favorite series of like all time is because I can play through the game with friends. It's not a PvP thing or anything like that. Like that's cool that you can do that, but like as you said, being able to experience that campaign, that story with your friends is something that you don't get in many games. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I spent with a good friend of mine playing through Borderlands, and we were like, we had just so many emotions going through us that like we were laughing, we were like sad when like people died, and the hilarity that is Claptrap and Handsome Jack, like just the stupid stuff like that is so much better with other people than it is by yourself. And I think, Destiny, I think would be remiss maybe if they didn't have, like a 3-man fire team that could go through and play through the story. I think they'd be remiss for that.
Or heck, even 6-man story missions. 6-man patrol. Bungie, make it happen.
That would be interesting.
That would be
Big
cool.
team story.
I would like overworld bosses, and I know this is fanciful, but I would like overworld bosses that are raid level bosses, but that are random. So for example, if we were 6-manning on Cosmodrome, and I was up in Skywatch, and one of these guys like jumped over a building, I could say, guys, we have like 30 minutes. Please get to Skywatch now. And it would just be, I don't know, if it's just 6-man patrol where you're goofing off doing impromptu sparrow races through the moon, yeah, that's one thing, but I don't know. The more people you can do it with, I don't think they're going to take away the 3-man fire team, but just I think they need to have more story based around that 3-man fire team, because even if you play through this whole game with a fire team, the cutscenes were one guardian.
Yeah, there's never any mention of there being any more than you in the story. That's for sure.
Wasn't that Halo Reach that did that? Where they had like your character, but your friends would show up in the cutscenes. Didn't that happen in Reach? I know your character as you customized him, but what weren't your friends in there too?
I think they did, yeah,
If
actually
they,
show up in the
I
cutscenes
think
when
they
you're
did.
playing, which is that's a nice addition because it's like, hey, look, there's all of us.
Well, yeah.
Like you
You're
guys
like,
are
oh,
looking
hey,
good.
cool. Yeah. I think that would be really cool. I agree. I want to definitely see more involvement with cutscenes, and also like you said with patrols. Doing the 6-man, having it kind of be like public events, but they're not public. I guess they're just like random. Yeah, like you said, just random events. That'd be really fun.
go and have a huge boss or something, like a public event on steroids. Because at this point, public events really don't do anything for us. Um, they give you a legendary mark and they give you some good things. It's fun to do them, but by the end of probably the second month, you would go to a public event and you'd stomp all over whatever was happening. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I
Going
definitely
solo a
agree.
walk or whatever.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I definitely want to see more harder, like, public event kind of stuff that could happen. Random chances, and that would be fun. I would definitely agree to that.
is there anything else y'all guys want to say about Destiny 2? Is there anything else you want to speculate on? I think we're getting, according to my time, we're getting right around 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Unless y'all want to jump into another topic, I think we're getting close to the end of the Age of Triumph stuff, at least for this week, because I know that next week we'll be all hyped to
Yeah.
uh, talk about VOG.
I would just like to finish with, as having come into this game very recently, I I was kind of skeptical when I first got the game because I'd heard mixed things about it. Like I said, from a friend who'd said it was kind of, the replayability wasn't really that there originally for him. But coming into this game, when I have, and like all this new stuff that's coming out, like, it makes me glad that I picked up this game, because I got into a new story, but also I found a group of people to play with Epic, which really helped me, because I really wanted to do Wrath of the Machine because I thought it was awesome. And so, like, I'm looking forward to carrying on the same enjoyment and the same, like, level of playability and just the newness of having something kind of far out there, with Destiny 2. So I'm really hoping that Bungie lives up to the hype with that. Like, all the hype that they've been getting now, I really hope it lives up to that, otherwise I think they're going to lose their player base.
I'd have to agree with that too. I'm thoroughly impressed with the community involved in this game because it's very, very accepting. They very openly embrace you. It's so easy to meet great people playing this that eventually you might go on and play other games with. That's been a very big upside, I think.
Well, even the vocal minority that come out and say this game sucks and I'm going to quit, and we even had this last update in February, whenever it was. We even had a couple of streamers who deleted all their characters, said, I'm not playing Destiny anymore, and there's a couple who have completely quit it. Even those vocal minority are kind of ignored. And so I guess that's a lot to do with Bungie themselves making community, having two great community managers who make sure the positivity is brought out. Um, but I think it just has a lot to do with people wanting to just play something that was, even with its flaws, was very well made. I mean, Bungie's always been made good things. So, um, if that if there's nothing really more to say about Destiny 2, I think that is pretty much a wrap. I have been ACB the man,
Shenanigans?
And bnelly?
and this is Radio Epic. You can find us on the 100.io site. We are playing Epic. I think you just search Epic on there. I'll have a link in the description below. But just follow us. We're going to try to make this a weekly thing if we can. Every other week if we cannot quite make it a weekly thing. But we're just going to talk Destiny. We'll start talking other games if we run out of stuff to talk about with Destiny. But with all these raids and stuff coming out, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Not at all.
No, not at all.